Tec Sounds presents EduTrends.
Hi, this is the EduTrend podcast produced by the Institute for the Future of Education of Tecnológico de Monterrey. This is part of the Tec Sounds podcast family of Tec de Monterrey. And today's guest is Sebastian Thrun, who is the chairman of Udacity. Sebastian, welcome.
It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Pepe.
Thank you, Sebastian. We have been here today around the Board of Trustees meeting of Tec de Monterrey. We're invited to. And I wanted to start with a personal question to you. What push you to work in education? You have worked in other fields, navigation of vehicles, etc. Many places in the field of applying AI. Why particularly education?
Well, there's a saying going back to China that says if you catch a person a fish, they have dinner for one night. But if you teach them how to fish, they have dinner for the rest of their lives. In some level, I think education is the single most important thing that we discovered in society, because it empowers people to build their own things.
That's a very important interesting question. For me, it also was a passion of transforming the lives of people that led me to education. Well, now AI is a main thing right now in the media. No, you've been working for a lot of years in AI. What particularly right now is a big moment for AI?
For one, the systems have just become bigger, and size matters. Like if you look at, let's say, biological brains, none of us are impressed by cockroaches, but we're all impressed by human brains. And to some extent, you could say a human brain is just a much, much bigger version than a cockroach brain. But it turns out it is better structured, holds more information, is more capable. The same has happened in AI. So when I grew up as a college student, I did grow my little neural networks, and they had like 5 hidden neurons. And now they have 5 billion neurons. So the scale is fundamentally different. The way we train them, the way we use them, and they've become much smarter.
Yes, and I would agree with you, but also I think there's much more data available right now.
Yeah, we live at this moment where the online data is exploding. The things you can train them off is just gargantuous. By historical proportions, never happened before. And we now reached the point when you build a smart AI, it looks and feels just about as smart as a person.
Exactly. What are your view on the future of work and AI? How much will AI disrupt?
To me, AI is a tool that we should use in work. A lot of people's jobs are concerned about the creation of new things, like artists and musicians, but also software engineers, marketing people. AI is now proven to be an incredible helpful hand in creating content faster and better. There's a lot of people do research for a living. They do discovery, whatever you call it, going through massive amounts of data and analyzing data. AI is now shown to be able to analyze data much, much faster than people can, so they're really good tools. And then my personal pet peeve, self-driving cars, is an AI where you put the perception part of being able to take in data and analyze it straight back to the controls parts, the gas pedal and the brake and the steering wheel, and build effectively an autonomous AI that can drive by itself. And those systems are on the rise as well.
So do you think that many people are in peril of losing their job in the future?
I don't think about job loss as much as being more efficient in your job. Let's say you work in an office, and let's say you're an accountant or you're an attorney or a medical doctor. Let's say you could do your work 10 times faster than today, which is very realistic. That would open up a lot of time for you. So what you do in a week today, you do in 4 hours. That'd be amazing, because now you have so much more time to be creative, to do new things, try new things. And I would argue much of the work we do, we don't really like. A lot of work we do is just not that pleasurable.
Yes.
It just has to be done. And if we could push all the work we don't like to machines, we could do much more likable work.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, but I think also sometimes we are hired for some reason for a certain job. And maybe the reason that we were hired for that job is because we were good at something that now can be automated. So let me give you an example. No, it's an example of someone like you that has been a CEO. No, so I read this article that analyzes the task that a CEO does during time, and most of the time will be like maybe 60% of the time, 70% of the time are related to administration and control, and the rest of the time is more like putting people together, creating a common vision, a team, etc. So most of the time people are hired, but the task there's the main task, which is the 70% of control and administration. And those are the kind of tasks that can be automated by AI. So that means that maybe the people that are directors or CEOs right now, in the future, they will be executing only the tasks that maybe they were not that good when they were hired. No, I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Well, first of all, I would argue that the really great CEOs are great CEOs not because they're great administrators, but they're great leaders. And they're able to articulate a vision and line up people behind that vision and lead them into battle, so to speak. Let's say you took all the remedial work off the plate, like the stuff that CEOs hate doing, myself included.
Everyone.
Let's say that frees up half my time. That would mean instead of running one company, I could run two companies. I know someone who's done this, called Elon Musk. He's running about 4 companies right now, or 3 companies. And he's been phenomenally successful in just focusing what he's really good at and not focusing on HR and all that stuff. Now, you might debate that's good or bad, but I'm pretty sure if you could take every person and take away the stuff they don't like, we had many more Elon Musks.
Yes. Well, it's a good point of view. Thanks, Sebastian. What about the AI in education? What do you think will change?
I think there's 3 dimensions in which we're going to see change. Number one, a global scale. I think institutions have to think about how to have global scale as opposed to local scale. And that's been facilitated by AI in many ways, but also by the internet. Number 2 is lifelong learning. I really believe that people should train themselves at least 10 minutes a day for the rest of their lives. That would actually really help them to adapt to new technologies, to new job perspectives. And then the third is the most important one, which is we now enter an age where education can be hyper-personalized. It's been known for a while, since the 80s, that if you hyper-personalized education, meaning you have a personalized tutor who works with you, who knows you really, really well, you can take a normal child and turn it into a highly gifted child, into an overperformer. That paper in 1982 talks about 2 sigma, and 2 sigma means the outcome is 2 standard deviations beyond what your wildest dreams would expect. Just by being able to personalize education to a student, instead of having have 30 students sit in the classroom and all listen to the same lecture at the same time, which feels archaic to me given where we are in technology. Once you roll this out and use AI to hyper-personalize, our collective IQ will jump through the roof. We will have a generation of new young people who are so much smarter than anything we've seen before, so much more motivated. It's going to be a phase shift in what we're able to accomplish. And those new people, these new kids, will be able to invent stuff we never thought of before. They're going to cure cancer. They're going to double the human lifespan. They're going to find stuff that today looks like science fiction.
So in the past, we have seen that some of these new things that are very advanced benefit more the people that already are privileged, and not the people that are more in need. How do you think AI will play in this future, creating more difference or making people more even in general?
I've come to believe that technology in education is the great equalizer. And just give an example of a company we don't think of as an education company, but that trains more people than I've ever met before, is Google. Google trains us every day an interesting new fact. So does YouTube. And it doesn't just train the rich people and privileged people. It trains everybody who wants to be trained. Because the cost access to Google is effectively zero at this point. And that's new. I mean, accessing high quality information before was very expensive. Google really democratized the access to information in a way that's unbelievable. I think online education, online training, with Udacity and other places, really is democratizing education. We now train millions of people in the Middle East and in Uzbekistan and other places how to code. And quite frankly, those people never had a chance before to see a modern computer and learn how to code it. And now we can do it by the millions because of the economics and the technology behind it. So while sometimes when you roll out new stuff, the privileged people are the first to use it, eventually I think everybody gets a chance to use it.
Mm. So AI will be cheap or free to be used for everyone. That's what you believe.
Today, AI is effectively free for most people. When you go to BART or ChatGPT or Claude or these places and you use it to answer your questions, for most people it's free. It might not be the highest level great service yet, maybe a slightly outdated model. That means it's like a year old, but it's still amazingly free.
What do you think are the risk of or the things that we have to be aware when using AI?
It's a very potent tool. The number one risk I see today is in this subfield called fake news, deep fakes, where AI researchers are able to synthesize voice recordings or even entire videos of people doing something they never actually did. In the world of fake news, I think we have to start learning more from scratch again what is trustable, what isn't. I have confidence we will, because fake news is nothing new. Fake news has existed as old as news. 100 years ago, a lot of magazines printed completely fake articles because they figured out they get a higher readership with fake news. And then society kind of didn't like it, and we started developing institutions whose code of ethics was to only report correct news, like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. I think the same has to happen now in this new world. We have to learn how to deal with this kind of stuff, and there be a while of confusion where we're going to fall into the trap of pranksters.
So fact checkers is like a good thing, a good, I would say, investment opportunity.
I believe that the secret of Western society more than anybody else has been the free flow of information and the ability to disseminate not just information, but also opinions that served us well historically. It's going to serve us well in the future. But with this new potent AI technology, classical ways of telling what's right and what's wrong will not work. So you might hear a voice recording of your child or your father saying, "Hey, I'm in stress. I had a traffic accident. I need a credit card right now. Give me the number." And before you realize, you lose money to a criminal organization. That's happening today quite a bit. And AI will unfortunately accelerate this.
Wow. One of the concerns of AI in education, at least at the moment, is related to evaluation. No, so how students are evaluated, what's the degree of trust that you have in something that a student has done, either using AI without telling the professor, or using AI because the professor has allowed them to use them. What's your view on that?
I think as a professor, we should radically let students use AI. We should take our class and give them a challenge and say, can you pass the class with an A+ only using AI? And then when the class is over, sit down with the students and ask the question, tell me exactly how you did this. And then the professor should learn what not to do, because that's now obsolete. So rather than clinging to the old, we should embrace the new. If it's really true that your essay can be done with AI, why on earth would you want to teach a student to do the essay by hand? It's almost like saying, I can go to the supermarket and buy myself a dinner, but as a professor, I prohibit this. You have to go to nature and grow your own crop and catch your own deer and make dinner that way, because it's cheating to go to the supermarket and pick up the food there.
It's a good analogy. But let me tell you if I understand correctly. So what you're proposing is crowdsourcing your students to find the...
You want to
trick
understand
the system.
You want to understand as a professor, is your teaching and your way of assessing students still up to date in this new era? Almost certainly the answer is no. So you're going to figure out, until students game the system, give me an A+, and you teach me how you used AI to game my exams. And then the next iteration of exams, I'm going to craft in a way that's harder and harder for you to game. And guess what? I will eventually make exams that, even if you massively use AI, still test your ability to solve my problems. That's the only right way to go. Look, we're not going to sit there and take away calculators from students when we have a math exam. It's the opposite. We give them calculators and we make those exam questions such that The calculator doesn't solve the entire question, it just helps them. And guess what? Every person on the planet who is professional can afford a calculator if they need to. So why on earth would we tie people's hands behind their back trying to solve problems, when in reality, they can use and should use those tools? Instead, we should train them to use those tools to the best possible outcome, and then rethink, obviously, the right stuff in the advent of those tools.
So what you say about the calculator, it remind me when I entered the university on my first math course, there were already scientific calculators around. They were expensive, but they existed. And our professors didn't let us use the scientific calculator because we had to learn how to use the slide rule. So a good engineer was defined by how good he was to use the slide rule. At that moment...
And how much has the use of slider rule advanced your actual career since?
But I think that at that moment, they were not looking at the future, how the slide rule would become obsolete in 2-3 years, because engineers in their work, they will be using scientific calculators. So it's exactly the same that is happening right now, even more powerful tool. Yeah, it's not a calculator, but...
If you're an educator and you take your job seriously, I'm going to challenge you. Your job ought to be to set up your students for maximum success in life. If you are holding back and teach them on what would have been successful 20 years ago, you're not doing your best job. And I know it's uncomfortable to be challenged, and I know it's uncomfortable to hear this, but why wouldn't you, in your desire to do the best possible job, make it your goddamn duty to think hard what the future brings and then prepare your students for that future? Why wouldn't you do this? What educator are you if you don't do that? It's uncomfortable. It doesn't have a textbook. I'm sure you're going to make mistakes. I've made many mistakes in my life. But remember, the students are very young right now, and they come out and they cannot use the slide ruler as a way to solve problems. And if you force them to do it, you can tell yourself stories. Always good for your brain to do this, but in reality, you're not going to shoot your dinner with bow and arrow. You're going to buy your dinner in the supermarket because it's much more convenient. So let's move on with time and figure out this new stuff is there. Use it to the advancement of your students and yourself. Your field will be transformed, no matter what you teach, by AI. And yes, at some point, all the journals in your field will heavily be based on what AI can do for them. As has happened in many disciplines. If you go to genomics today, it's all statistical. Biology is all statistical. It's not phenomenological the way it used to be 30 or 40 years ago. The science changes. What we scientists do changes, and that's a good thing. So I would challenge every professor to really think about how students can best use AI, and then what is there for you to teach in this new era, because almost certainly there's great new skills to teach.
So embrace AI now because it's inevitable. The sooner the better.
Like every technology, in the end of the day, when people embrace it, ends up to be good for people. There's no technology that I know of that is uniformly just bad that still exists today. The bad technologies die out. And I do believe AI has so much opportunity to make so many things more efficient. It's hard to imagine it dying out.
Just like one very optimistic view of the use of technology that I like, and I agree with you. One final comment on the ethical problems of AI. What would you say about that?
I think AI is a tool, and it's really important to remember that the ethics are with the person, not the tool. It's like a kitchen knife. Like a kitchen knife is something I use every day at home to cut my produce. It can be abused. You can hurt somebody with a kitchen knife, but the responsibility is not with the knife. It's with the person using it. And that's true for AI. AI does have innate biases. When you train it on a certain data set, it will reflect what that data set entails. If you really hate those biases, then you shouldn't go after AI. You should go after the people who made those data. Like if you, for example, copy data from news articles and books and they're biased in a way you don't like, it's not the AI that creates the bias. It's the people who created the books who created the bias. But I do believe it's important to be aware of these biases. It's important to understand that, for example, when you make an image of a CEO into DALL-E, you're almost likely going to get a person of a white male and not of a black female. If you want to change this, you can adjust for those biases. You can literally go and say, I will use my tools slightly differently. I'm going to adjust for those biases to modify the output accordingly. And it's very doable. It's up to you. And now you're engineering a value system that you believe in. And that's a good thing to do. Be ethical. Live the values you want to live. and use those tools to your advantage. The biases can be shifted and can be changed, and they can be considered. But don't blame the technology. Please blame, if anything at all, blame the people using it.
Yeah. So we are full of bias all the time, and most of the time we are not aware of those biases. So it implies being conscious of those biases and being conscious that when you use these tools, they have bias embedded and how to deal with that bias, understanding how they
let's
work.
remember, most biases are very practical and very, very good. There's a lot of great biases, right? And we discriminate all the time. For example, admission at Monterey Tech discriminates based on intellect, right? So if you're smarter and have more accomplishments, you're more likely to be admitted. And that's fine. That's actually a good thing in my books. And some biases we don't like. Some biases we've learned as a society are wrong. They deprive people of opportunity and run against our values. And those biases, they have to be overcome. Absolutely, yes. And I love, for example, in the United States, how much work we put into helping gay and transgender people, how much we help and are helping females and minorities and so on. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. I'm very much behind the social message of the West. But again, don't think that these tools by themselves create inequity. It's people who create inequity.
We have to train people to understand that. Okay.
Yeah. It's important to talk about it. It's important to spot it when it happens, right? So there's some incredible examples where systems gave a very poor output based on just little side details in training data. And it's great to have a field of researchers looking into this. But morally, these are tools. These are not decision makers. You will never put an AI in jail. It's the people using AI you put in the jail.
One last question about Udacity and what you're doing in AI.
Udacity has a very global footprint. We teach massive numbers of AI classes. It's been for the last 6 or 7 years our bread and butter to teach AI skills and data science skills, product development skills in AI. We use it internally. We most recently launched a online mentor that can respond to people with problems. We used to have human mentors, and our collective students worldwide would create about 200 tickets a day for those mentors to answer. And when we switched over to AI, this number from 200 went to 20,000. In part because AI is so much faster in responding and so much easier to use. It was a big upkeep, and as a result, really helped our students succeed much better. So I think AI, we also use AI to make content. We create content literally with AI. When we say, give us a course outline on topic XYZ, we use AI to help us draft the initial course outline. And when we put content together, like exams and so on, we use AI to do it. It's been very successful.
That's great. With this, we finish. Thanks a lot, Sebastian, for your time and your generosity.
It's a total pleasure.
Happy to have you here at Tec de Monterrey. See you soon.
Thank you so much.
For more information, visit observatory.tec.mx/edutrendspodcast and ife.tec.mx. A special thanks to Tecnológico de Monterrey, the Institute for the Future of Education, and the Tec Sounds team, EduTrends producers Esteban Venegas and Cristian Hijosa. Stay tuned and play Tec Sounds in your favorite podcast app for other great shows and content.
Hola, soy Karina Rodríguez.
Y yo soy Mariana León.
Y te invitamos a escuchar Historias para Mentes Curiosas.
El podcast de Tec Science en donde te contamos cómo la ciencia impacta en tu vida.
Historias para Mentes Curiosas es parte de Tec Sounds Podcast,
la barra oficial del Tecnológico de Monterrey.